Guys, this is a deep topic, so before we get into anything, make sure you're in the right headspace for this. And be forewarned, there is going to be some hard to hear statistics and some uneasy truths today. There will also be some exercises and advice to help though, and end with final thoughts to make you feel amazing. Now, not to sound cliche, but in 2024, we are more directly connected as a global society than at any point in recorded history. And our connection is getting more and more accessible as time goes on. But also in 2024, we are seeing stats that show people tend to feel more lonely and isolated than past generations. Maybe you, my dear unicorn viewer, feel this yourself. I know I do from time to time. So let's look into this. In the last year alone, there have been several official studies looking into this to address this growing problem that seems to be reaching new heights of concern for governments, industries, and just your average person. We will go through a few countries to give you an idea. In a study commissioned and released by the US Surgeon General's office titled Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation, released in early 2024, stated that nearly 50% of American adults are experiencing personal struggles with a sense of loneliness, and Americans of all ages are spending less time with others and more time isolated. Health Canada has come to roughly the same findings that at least 50% of the Canadians over the age of 15 are experiencing issues with loneliness and isolation. The UK's NHS reported at least 10% of the population overall is experiencing issues with chronic loneliness and isolation. However, public outreach studies by third-party medical groups have found at least 33% of their sample groups state they struggle with loneliness and isolation problems. And Japan's SHI reported that up to 57% of adult Japanese citizens are struggling with loneliness and isolation, of which roughly 48% do not talk to others about these issues. So in an era with communications technology, social media, live stream and interactive group media, and public forum and message boards, it has become possible to speak to just about anyone, anywhere on earth. It goes beyond contact with friends and family and is extended into the realms of employment and live entertainment. As an example coming from myself, my co-writer Matt lives in Canada, my editor Gary lives in the UK, and myself in Ireland. Thanks to the wonders of instant messaging applications, virtual file sharing servers, and other methods of staying in contact, something that would have been impossible to small-scale channels 15 to 20 years ago. We can generally reach each other in seconds 24/7. Pesky time zones, however. Living in today's world, you couldn't be blamed for thinking this should make people feel a greater sense of community and closeness to others, rather than some lonely and more isolated, as the statistics seem to show in highly developed countries. So why is this? And why does the trend seem to be ticking upward rather than down with the passing of each year? Have people lost the ability to socialise? Have entertainment and personal devices walled people off from each other? Are there mental and physical aspects and changes in social norms that are at play? Or is there some spooky fourth reason that I just can't think about at the moment? Would you be shocked to find out that there is no single reason that this is happening? What's that? You wouldn't? Well, look at you, being all smart and sexy with your big brain. That's right. This is a problem that has experts debating which factor is the key factor in this growing cultural issue, and coming to the conclusion that it is a combination of factors that include, but are not limited to, the four major factors we're going to talk about in today's video. Your interpersonal and communication skills, physical and mental health or state, level of social and professional obligations, and even a possible echo effect from a pandemic that he who shall not be named. So let's begin. Okay, so deep breath. Now, cause we're about to talk about something no one likes to talk about. Are you the reason you're lonely or feeling isolated? It is a terrifying existential thought nearly every human being has to deal with. Do they really actually like me? Which is only made more terrifying thanks to how you perceive interpersonal skills and social dynamics among your peers. The people you like, don't like, and why. And naturally, as social creatures, we are hardwired to seek approval and acceptance. We do this not only because our higher human mind tells us this, having more people that like you makes loneliness and isolation statistically less likely, which it doesn't, but we'll get into that, but also because our primal monkey brains tell us this is good for our survival. Remember, safety in numbers. So back to the question though, are you the reason you're lonely or isolated? Well, the short answer is yes. And the long answer is, well, it's still yes. However, it is a yes with a but. And it is a beautiful but. Oh, yeah.
Well, nice.
So before I go into this, please note I am talking about a person alienating or isolating themselves. I'm not talking about those that are suffering as a victim of some kind of domestic abuse, nor am I talking about a person with physical or mental disabilities that make it extremely difficult for them to socialise. I am, however, talking about people that have a personal autonomy, are mostly able-bodied and would be classified as normal, functioning, independent people. That said, your personable and social skills can be making you lonely and or isolated. In being so interconnected online with others, many people have shifted the emphasis in regards to how we regularly interact with others outside our homes. This is more noticeable in the option for virtual rather than in-person interactions, which can result in some people starting to see or feel it is a hassle to meet with someone compared to these virtual interactions. And while this sounds like it should be a no-brainer for leading to a person feeling more lonely or isolated, many people don't realise that our brains do not experience the same stimulation from virtual and in-person socialising, which can result in an unintentionally self-imposed form of isolation. The good news for this specific problem is that in theory, it is easy to correct. The bad news, in practice, it takes effort and time to correct. So brace yourself. Socialise in person more and not just with family and friends. Although that is definitely a good step. I mean people in general. Instead of ordering something online from a local store, go to the store to get it in person so you have an interaction with crowds and employees. If you're feeling a little bit more in the groove, step it up and ask an employee where something in the store is, even if you already know where it's located. And when you're feeling particularly very brave, ask an employee for something you know they do not have there. This lets you practice getting no's, which is also important. As strange as these things may sound for ways to feel less alone and isolated, these are actually tried and true examples of exercises for dealing with social and general anxiety used in cognitive behavioural therapy, or training, CBT. They are designed to help a person practice socializing by making the practice controlled on your terms, in a self-perceived safe space, at your own pace, with the general idea of conditioning you to be calmer and more able to deal with both positive and negative personally perceived interactions, getting a yes or no from other people. The important thing to remember in doing these kind of exercises, just like physical exercise, you have to repeat these exercises to normalize the behavior and actions. A formal CBT course, they teach the rule of 3 or 5, which suggests it takes a minimum of 3 repeats to 5 repeats of an exercise before you will even start to become comfortable with it. Also, just like physical exercise, once you have reach the limit of what that exercise can provide your body in terms of greater results, plateauing, these exercises will require you to change it up and increase their difficulty in order to progress. So after you've gotten comfortable with a previous task like talking to store employees, you move up a stage, like talking to a random shopper or maybe some small talk with a stranger, repeating until you reach what is your ideal level of social savviness and comfort level socializing person. Now, the important thing is to take it at your own pace and not going from 0 to 100 in a day. Right now, you're probably wondering how this helps with family and friends, though. And I've got some more good news for you. These skills are transferable in almost any social setting, and they are much easier to practice on strangers that aren't aware of your idiosyncrasies. Additionally, in learning these skills, you will eventually realize you've learned the ancient secret to making friends as an adult without social media, just talking.
Yes, I have that knowledge. I hold the secret to life itself.
That's great, right? So moving on to physical and mental health or state. Now, ultimately, this is often the most likely core issue for most of us, while still not being the only or sole reason a person feels isolated and lonely. Our mental health, of course, has everything to do with our ability to do things, from us being able to hold a casual conversation to perceiving and seeing reality as it actually is. And it can take very little to throw these abilities and perceptions off for most people. If your mental state is already low and you're feeling down on yourself, experiencing mild depression or anxiety, your personal perspective regarding interactions will often register as mostly neutral to negative rather than positive, even though some of these neutral or negative interactions were in fact positive. These personal perspective biases also tend to happen mostly around your friends and family, which are people that would otherwise be your support network for something like dealing with acute depression and low mood, causing a double whammy in feeling isolated and lonely. The answer here might sound obvious to most viewers. However, as mentioned in the intro, nations like Japan report 48% of Japanese adults feel like they cannot talk about these issues. And the answer is, remember to talk about it. Reach out for help. Sure, when you're acting like a prat to people that care about you, they aren't going to want to be dealing with you. But the moment you stop lashing out, ask for help, and let them know the problem, most will be willing to help. Additionally, whenever possible, seek professional medical help or advice diagnosing the problem, as there could be a greater underlying issue needing to be addressed. Which is a great segue into the second part of this category, the physical health. That's right, my unicorns, your physical health also has a lot to do with it. The more we repeat certain activities, the more we become comfortable with these activities and the easier they become for us to accomplish. Like, holy crap, just like the CBT stuff that we've been talking about. See guys, no BS. Humans are beings of habit. The more sedimentary your lifestyle, the more this leads to poor physical health, which can also lead to less socializing in person, attending events, and just generally going out, as it becomes a hassle and not worth your time. The only real fix to this is to become more physically active, and this doesn't mean that you need to go and join a gym, even if I nearly always think that's the best idea. But it means getting roughly 30 minutes of steady activity in the form of light cardio and low impact exercises a day, or at least multiple times a week. And be sure to get blood tests at least once a year if possible to keep an eye on things. Cutting refined sugar, avoiding salty, high-energy processed foods, while increasing your water intake with your food can make a huge difference to your overall health, and is one of the easiest ways to shed some pounds if weight is an issue for you. It's also never a bad idea to consult with a medical professional when making a large lifestyle change to something like your diet, again, if possible. Moving on to level of social and professional obligations. We've all been guilty of overloading our social and professional plates and to-do lists with more than we can realistically manage. Looking at you, younger Jay, what makes this worse for a person doing this to themselves is their desired effects, to feel less lonely or isolated. Ever heard of the law of diminishing returns? Each obligation added pushes your ability to achieve all of these desired effects further and further out of reach. Basically, this is what an overachiever ends up accomplishing when they overload themselves with too many obligations, and this generally only ends in one of several less than ideal situations. When you become so overloaded and overwhelmed, you can no longer keep up. It's one of those, they don't try like they used to situations, and people start seeing you as a talker and not as a doer anymore. Another common outcome is that you may realise you have to let something lapse in order to achieve deadlines and personal goals when overloaded, leaving you to either skip out or half-ass your contribution enough times to make your friends, family and peers feel alienated by you, so they stop reaching out, assuming you just can't be bothered. And finally, there is the one I'm personally most familiar with, the burnout and or breakdown. These are probably more familiar with our millennial and zoomer viewers, where you have become so overloaded you pretty much break and let everything just come crashing down. And when this happens, some people are lucky and their support network sees it coming and either intervenes before it happens, like a spouse that tells you to quit your crap job because it's killing you. But more often than not, the break results in isolation and loneliness if it includes you lashing out at the people you see as responsible for overloading you. Been there. That really hits in the feels. And sometimes you may feel the need to just disappear for a while. This, once again, is what I also have done many occasions. This one can be a little bit more tricky to be aware of and to correct, since the people pleaser instinct that is usually at the heart of this is a hard one to spot in yourself, and usually requires someone not just pointing it out, but spending time proving it to you. The most important thing to remember in a situation like this is to be aware of time. Like literally, buy and keep a day planner if needed. Also know your self-worth. If someone is expecting too much of you with no return, tell them. If they keep doing it, tell them why you're not going to do it anymore and follow through with it. A recent movement of silent protest in China has been dubbed the Let It Rot movement. You may have heard of it, and is an example that shows what longer cultural acceptance of overwork does to an entire generation of people overworking themselves with nothing to show for it at the end of the day. Remember who and what is actually important to you personally. Is that job worth skipping out on important family events, or are the family members more important? Most people understand everyone has a limit, but since they don't know the ins and outs of your life, they might overestimate your ability. Again, most people, when told you're maxed out, will be sympathetic, and in some cases will offer to improve your situation. Which brings us to the fourth point, the pandemic echo effect. Remember 2020? Yeah. Me neither, but apparently we had a pandemic and a lockdown for almost 2 full years. I really don't remember that, do you? Remember how that was lifted in 2022? Remember how it is now, late 2024, at the time of this recording? Well, it turns out that nearly 2 years of living in lockdown and under social restrictions had some long-term effects on people. Go figure! A lot of people that experienced the pandemic and lockdown now experience a mental block when it comes to the fact that it is safe to see your friends, go into crowds, and is now mostly okay, or should I say safe, to breathe the recirculated air with strangers in a clinic waiting room without a mask on. We all formed some kind of new habits over this time, which have easily contributed to the feeling of loneliness and isolation for many of us. And while I don't have much advice for helping with this one, unfortunately, as each case is different, depending on your level of retained stress and pandemic conditioning, I would highly recommend looking into cognitive behavior therapy, workbooks, or groups for help with this. A large part of overcoming this is simply reconditioning yourself again, and also know you are truly not alone. My final thoughts, and please listen well. Anyone that has ever experienced the feeling of true loneliness or isolation is well aware of just how horrible it feels, and in my opinion, one of the worst feelings a human being can experience, especially since it can happen without any warning. But it is always important to remember, no matter how alone you feel, you're never truly alone. You're not alone. As an individual among billions of other humans on this planet, and you are not alone in these feelings. Hundreds of millions of people struggle with these feelings on a daily basis, maybe just like you. And even more important, with practice and repetition of relatively simple exercises, these issues are for the most part totally treatable and something a person can move beyond in time. Just remember, change is never comfortable. So to feel distressed, overwhelmed, or nervous when trying to change habits and learn new skills to overcome something is totally normal. This is the reason you should start small and work your way to something larger at your own pace to reduce the urge to regress and hide back into your old habits and patterns. Most importantly, remember you have worth as a person in society. You are seen and you are loved. No matter how much the voices of self-doubt and fear tell you otherwise, no matter how deep the emotional scars of your past traumas go, no matter how awful abusers have been, you matter. You can heal and move on. And there are people out there that want to help you. No matter how bad things get, you never have to walk through life alone. I hope this has helped. Take care. Is there some what's that? And social dynamics or have fuck it. Primal monkey brains. Oh, actually, I'm just gonna wait. Yeah, no. Because it become what? Yeah, I don't know why that sent. There's an extra part there. It's not. Shouldn't be there. A person feeling. What? And this. A person feeling. Oh, God, ah, fuck. The good news for this specific problem is, man, Jesus, oh my God. So brace yourself in a self-perceived safe space. Oh my God, my God. It's all sad. I'm just gonna go back to So after you've gotten comfortable with a previous task, like talking to store employees, God, this is what, yeah. So moving on to physical and mental health or state. 16 minutes off, 17 minutes off, jeez. Additionally, whenever possible, seek help with it. The more sedimentary. Yeah. Shit. Oh yeah. Keep an eye on things. Yeah. Why did he add in that part? Okay. And be sure to fuck. There's something wrong with that sentence. Hello, my lovely unicorns, and thank you for dropping by today. I've been your lovely friend Jay, and if you want to see more of me in the future, and if you have not already, then feel free to smash that subscribe button. If you like the episode, feel free to like it, and feel free to comment so I get to know your mind. And also, if you do get time, feel free to share it to your communities, such as your Discord communities, your WhatsApp communities, whoever you deem is worthy. But until next time, guys, keep all that love in your heart and spread it out to all those, because God knows this world definitely needs it. Until then, I've been your friend Jay, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care.